so the other issue that's been going on since last week is so the bump in core DNS version caused a bunch of GCE and one of the kinder tests to start failing. And for those, we have a couple PRs open that are possible solutions, and I listed them at the end of my update. So 78.302 and 38. So the latter one, I think it just needs approval from. I think it needs approval from Jordan and Lubomir, and they are currently working on it. But the first one, if anybody knows any of the approvers for cluster GCE, any of the approvers are available and willing to provide a code review, please ping them. I've been looking around the place, but not many responses. But we need somebody to look over that PR so we can either fix it or just get a merge and see if it actually clears up the master informing dashboard. And so going back to test grid, there's 115 blocking, and 115 blocking looks exactly the same as master informing. So the only issue right now is a 6 storage test that is failing. And other than that, CI signal team will work all throughout this week to and start going through the 115 all dashboards, see which ones we can graduate to informing or blocking. For the ones that cannot be graduated, we'll talk with the owning SIG and see if they are, getting fixed, getting better looking, that type of thing. And with that, I end my update. Any comments, questions that any of you have?
Thanks a lot for the detailed update.
Hey, George, could you send me the list of PRs that you need help getting notice on?
Yes.
As you all know, I'm the best at being annoying, and so I will be annoying for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Let me send it.
The PRs are the ability to migrate core DNS in kubeadm and delete core DNS config map, correct?
Yes, especially the first one, deleting the core DNS config map. The owners for that place in the repo, I don't think they have. I don't think we have gotten any responses from them yet.
Mm-hmm. So who are the owners for that? GC, so it's people working directly in Google Cloud.
I have no idea.
I think that's Mr. Horn who has commented already there.
Yeah.
There's plenty. Mm-hmm. All right. We can move forward to enhancements. Is there anyone from enhancements here? I skipped that.
I was typing in the doc just a moment ago, but I don't see him on the attendee list now.
I couldn't hear that. Could you repeat?
It looked like Kenny was typing in the enhancements or in the doc in the notes just a moment ago, but I don't see him on the attendee list.
Looks like green. And in regards to the 2-3 exceptions that are listed, one is the IPv4v6 dual stack, which seems to have been reverted and won't be making it for this release. The other one is, wait a second, the computer is freezing. So node topology manager. Is there someone from SIG-Node in the call?
Yeah, I'm here specifically to represent that feature.
Hello.
Hi.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think a question was brought up whether we were going to get an extension to have this become part of the release. I've actually just been a reviewer of the code. I haven't been the proposer or necessarily the owner of the code. And I'm, Intel has been the one that's been backing it, and I'm at NVIDIA, and so we've been kind of vetting what's going to make it in and if it's actually going to be usable for us. And the reason for the extension that Intel gave when they proposed it was that a lot of the PRs that are still outstanding were blocked because of the issues we had with things getting added to the merge queue, with the bot being able to actually submit those jobs and get them merged. And the proposal was to get an extension through this Wednesday because the primary developers on it are based in Europe, and today is a holiday for them in Ireland. So they wanted to at least have tomorrow and Wednesday European time to finish things up.
Indeed, the merge queue was stuck and is generally stuck every code freeze deadline. Has so much work to do. From what I see, there are about 5-6 PRs open and still pending to be merged. However, it's also an alpha feature, and I guess that it's with a toggle flag. It's not the open
exactly. So so all of the PRs that have already merged shouldn't affect the build or any functionality at all. And the remaining ones would all be hidden behind the feature flag once it was added in. So it's very low risk in terms of breaking the build or breaking any existing functionality.
Indeed, yeah, since it's alpha, it can make it in time. Although the time is, there's not too much time since the release is in 2 weeks from now, in 14 days. And next week will be called thaw. Let's wait for Claire to have
to see what she has to say. Okay.
Yeah, Claire is the release lead for this cycle. I'm in the shadow team. The other exception is volume scheduling limits, is it? And there's storage in the call.
Yep, I'm here to talk about it. Did we have questions or we want to go over it? What's the... I guess I'll just start off by kind of reading why we were asking for an exception, or going over why we're asking for an exception for this. There's a couple pieces. One is, contained within the SIG storage set of code, and then we have another that's touches the scheduler. We've had a little bit of difficulty getting scheduler review on the code, and I think a couple of the people are out sick, so we weren't able to close it out last week. And then we're essentially asking for a couple day extension to get the scheduler pieces in.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
The importance of this is we have a the CSI feature that's recently landed, and this, if we don't have this in, it cripples it and does have some what I would consider bugs, but not really bugs. It just introduces some issues that we'd really like to not have there.
It looks like it's feasible, and though it will be on the default functionality, it's not an optional feature.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit through that.
Sorry, yeah, it's probably my computer. It's hitting on default functionality, so it affects every Kubernetes cluster running.
Yeah, it's a default feature. It's not behind the alpha feature kit.
Right.
but we have tests. We have done the performance numbers that Shake Scheduler has asked for to check that, okay, it should not introduce any regression. So mostly we should be good. There's a chance that we might have some bugs. There's a chance that we may have a bug that was not covered by an E2E or unit test. In that case, yeah, that's the risk.
Yeah, always the main concern is about CI stability, and we're very close to the release. But let's wait for Claire for that as well. For now, we can move forward with the agenda when my computer unfreezes. Next is bug triage. Nicholas, how's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty well. So no major updates over the weekend. The number of PRs that are still open remains about the same. So I'm going to be putting together the list of tickets for my team to handle this week. I think we're going to see this number precipitously drop because we're going to be cutting through these milestones, these open PRs that are still in milestone 115, like a hot knife through butter. So we're still at yellow, but I think that we'll be swiftly moving to green. Also, if anyone has any PRs or issues that you need attention on, please send them our way, like come to me, and I will prioritize those PRs with my team so that we can get some noise. And that's about it for me.
Sounds good, thank you. It looks like my computer is freezing so much, and I'm probably hard to, my voice is probably not so audible. It's chopping, I think. So Claire has joined the call. Hello, Claire.
Hello.
You can take over as my computer is not doing very well, it seems.
Okay. Where did Paul leave off?
Could you repeat that?
Who gave the last
update? We talked about CI signal and bug triage and a bit on the exceptions. So we can start from the exceptions.
Okay, so we did. Sounds like we did we did enhancement, CI signal, and bug triage. So then the next update up would be test infra.
Hey, hi. So the last week we had about 153 PRs merged. We had an issue with the test infra prow and tide. So I think the postmortem is pasted and everyone can go and take a look at it. We had a huge merge pool backed up, and we everything is green right now. So I think the status should be green. We slipped the code freeze by a day, and that's the status. But we are in code freeze now. Yay.
Yes. Thanks, Dwal. Any questions around test infra?
So thanks to everyone who jumped in to help with that, because there were a lot of issues and many people came on Slack and they helped out. So thanks everyone.
Yes. +1 from me. Many major shout outs to the folks over in SIG testing and everyone who helped out. Cool. We can then go over to docs.
Hey there. I'm currently working on stuff, looking at the next release. One of those is I've opened an issue for revisions to the shadow questionnaire. So any of you who are section leads who feel that the questionnaire needed to be fixed, it was too long, was unnecessary, it needed some extra questions, whatever, please comment on that issue. And at this point, all the section leads should have received chat messages from me asking them to think about nominating a successor out of their pool of shadows or otherwise.
Cool. Thank you, Josh.
For dogs, I'll be filling in for Bernie. I'm a shadow. So basically, we are green. Right now, we are targeting June 4th to get all the placeholder pull requests in. But right now, we are mostly green.
Okay. Are we missing any? It looks like we're missing 2 PRs possibly.
Yes, yes. Right now, we have about the wrong class scheduling. There's no PR for that. So yes.
Okay, so only missing 1 PR.
Yes, no PR for that, yes.
And that was wrong class scheduling?
Yes. I think that's enhancement 894.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, but we are mostly green, and we are targeting like June 4th to get all the drafts PR, ready for review.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions for docs? All right. If not, we can move over to release notes.
Hello. So we have cut and merged our latest draft into the GitHub repo. We've also spun up the Google Doc where we will be sharing it with all the different SIGs so they can come and make sure that things look good. Now that Freeze is in effect, we're going to start coming through the dependencies and deprecations and update those. And the release note site looks like it should be linkable and live by the end of the week. The DNS and Netlify requests are currently in flight, and then we just have to start generating the changelog from the release notes that we have to that site, and then things will start coming together.
Cool. Any questions for release notes? All right, I will pass it over then to George for comms. Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, let the release leads and enhancement folks know how we can best help support comms, since I know last cycle myself and Aaron were helping y'all a bit. Yeah, I would say let's try to have the themes figured out by end of week, since we have about 2 full weeks left of the release cycle. Cool. And yeah, let me know how I can help support if needed. Cool. Any other questions for comms? Okay, then I'll pass it over for release branch management.
Hello. No particular updates from my end. I'm just going to be continuing with fast forwarding the 115 branch. And on Wednesday, there's going to be beta 2 released. So yeah, that's it from my end.
Cool. Any questions for release branch management? All right, then Josh had mentioned the shadow questionnaire updates and that he's pinging leads, so I'll move on to my update. I'm gonna go with yellow in solidarity with CI Signal, since we do want to see CI Signal a little bit healthier and happier as we're getting closer to the release day. But it's good to see that there's issues being opened, and it seems like teams are relatively responsive for all the failures that we're seeing, so that's good. Just to give everyone some highlights around the upcoming milestones, we've started daily burn downs this week. So for Tuesdays and Thursdays, I sent out invites this morning. They'll be happening at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. if you are in the UK time zone. Let me know if anyone did not get those on their calendar, and I'll make sure to forward them. June 4th, as already mentioned, is the docs deadline, and then June 5th, as mentioned, is the 1.15 beta 2. Looking ahead to next week, what's coming up is on June 10th, we have the docs last call. June 11th is our planned date for code thaw. And June 11th is also the planned date for the RC1 to be released. And then June 13th is the planned cherry pick deadline. And then on Friday, we entered code freeze at about 5:30 in the afternoon after Prow had stabilized. There were some issues with the GitHub API, but those issues appeared to be based on looking through Slack, GitHub related and had nothing to do with our release. So we entered code freeze at 5:30. Again, shout outs to everyone in SIG testing for helping look through all these different issues. Talking about the exception requests. So we had 3 that came in. There was IPv4, IPv6. After some chat in Slack, they decided to withdraw their extension request. So that work is going to be deferred on for the next release. We still have 2 more, and I'm hoping we have folks on to help speak to these. So the first one I'd like to talk about is Node Topology Manager that came over from SIG Node. Is anyone on to talk about this one?
Yeah, I'm here from NVIDIA. So the feature itself, we talked about this a little bit before you joined, but the feature itself was proposed by mostly people from Intel, and I've mostly just been doing reviews on it, but I know none of them could make it here today, so I figured I'd at least come on and speak to it as best I can. The entire feature is hidden behind a feature gate. It's proposed to be an alpha feature. So any of the code that's already been merged shouldn't have any impact on the build or the current running of, of anything else. And the reason for the extension was mostly because a lot of the PRs depended on each other, and we got stuck, merging the later ones or even getting people to test them and see if the functionality was doing what it should expect, because we couldn't merge the other things in and get things rebased properly. I know this happens every release, but that was the main motivation behind the request for the extension, at least. And the reason the request was asked to be pushed out to the end of Wednesday was because the primary developers are based in Ireland, and today is a day off for them. So that would give them Tuesday and Wednesday to continue working on it to complete the ones that are still outstanding.
Okay. Yeah, when I had looked through last Friday, it looked like there were still 6 PRs related to this work that hadn't gotten LGTM or approved labels. Is that an accurate count of how many PRs are open?
Yeah, there's 6 that are still open. From my perspective, the feature would be good enough to work in an alpha state if out of those 6, 4 of them made it in. So the last 2, if they didn't make it in, it would still be a usable feature. But yeah, they're both medium sized. At least one should be large sized, I think. And at least from my perspective, I've done, extensive reviews on it, but I'm also not someone that has the ability to add an LGTM label. So we've been waiting mostly for reviews from people that could do that. So.
Okay, and in terms of just risk from merging those, like hypothetically best case 4 PRs, do we kind of have any sort of confidence level around testing and how those PRs, like, do they impact other areas of the k8s code base that might have some delayed impact with those not being merged early?
No, not really. It's more the main reason for, even requesting it to begin with, independent of, why things were slow, is that this was actually slated to go into 1.14, but it didn't make it because the primary reviewers didn't have time to review it before 1.14, and that same thing happened now before 1:15. Everything's happening kind of in the 11th hour to get all the reviews on it that we need. And except for the fact that now these people are engaged. So like Derek, for example, is actually starting to review it and has said he's willing to review it for the next couple of days if we get the extension. And it's, it's a feature that, if we get it in the alpha state early, it's something that people have been asking for a while. And so we'd like to get it out there in the hands of everyone as soon as possible so that it can eventually move into beta and then beyond. So.
Okay. George, from a CI signal perspective, do you have any additional questions or concerns?
So same questions as for the other exceptions. What is the state of unit integration, end-to-end test? Are there any?
Yeah, there's pretty extensive unit tests for some subset of this. Most of those are the ones that have already been merged. There are some unit tests for basic functionality to make sure that each of the independent core logic functions actually have the inputs and outputs that they expect. But it's definitely not full test coverage, and there's not any extensive integration tests as far as I know. It's kind of hard to integration test this feature because it depends on having nodes that have GPUs and other types of devices on them, which isn't in our infrastructure at the moment. But those things, again, being an alpha feature, some of these things could obviously be addressed as we move it, over the next couple releases into beta.
Yeah.
Just to touch on a couple of the things on the main things we hear about for alpha features are what is user visible. So that is like command line flags, config fields, API fields, anything that would be user visible. And so the one PR that I had been involved in was the one around the kubelet config, and there were still some questions about like, what the current behavior is with respect to any kind of topology policy. So there are still some open questions. They're not that significant, but anything that touches something that's going to be user visible, we have to make sure doesn't get persisted or surfaced unless they've opted into this alpha field. So I know it's Monday now. Do we have? I know you're not. You've been helping on the review side, so you probably can't speak to this. It's hard to tell what the timeline for this is gonna be. Like I said, the questions that I've seen haven't been that significant, but they have to get pinned down. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember seeing your reviews. My plan is I'm involved in this enough that I'm going to get online with the people in Ireland tomorrow morning because I'm also based in Europe, and make sure we get through the critical reviews, assuming that this extension is approved. And I agree. The main outstanding one that's required to that has any user-facing impact is this one where the flag is going to be added to enable or disable this feature and make sure that if they do enable it and set it to any of the valid settings, that doesn't negatively impact the rest of the system, right? So yeah, so if it gets approved, I will take the responsibility on to make sure that all your comments get addressed, and I'll pass that information on to these guys that have the PRs open. So
is the series of either 4 or 6 PRs, does it have to be sequential, or are there some of them that could be done in parallel?
Yeah, at this point, it's sequential. We got all of the parallel ones kind of done already.
Okay.
So when you say it's sequential, what I'm interpreting that is you need to get, of those like 4 or 6, like one merged before you can continue work on the following one?
Well, we can continue work on it, but we can't run the tests.
Merge in parallel. Yeah.
We can't merge them in parallel.
But how would you characterize the state of review across the remaining ones? Have they all had several review passes and are?
Yeah, from my perspective, I've left comments on all of them. There's some things that could be improved, but again, it being an alpha feature, I'm okay with merging it as it is, as long as we revisit some of these things. But it definitely is functional. So just some background on this, the way that I got involved from NVIDIA was we took their work in progress stuff And we have a work in progress stack internally that we're using to test all of this and make sure that we can actually do GPU allocations in a topology aware way using their stuff. And I gave a bunch of feedback to them saying, hey, this worked, this didn't work. Can we change this? Can we change that?
Yeah.
And over the last month or so, they've incorporated all of that. And through that cycle, it's now gotten to the point where it is, and it's sort of more minor things that they haven't quite addressed from the feedback that I've given them.
Okay.
But functionally, from my reviewer's perspective, it does mostly what it needs to at this point.
Yeah. If it's cleanly gated off and all of the external facing bits, flags and config and everything, there's no impact, no surfacing of that. If unless they've opted in, then I'm less concerned about it. It would be good to be pretty confident that we would actually get these merged by Wednesday because like getting 2 of these in, that's taking up time from reviewers and things in a pretty busy week. And if we're only going to get halfway there, then we should probably push it out. But if we can get all the way there and it is isolated and we can resolve these last questions, it seems low risk from my perspective.
One last question for you, Kevin. It sounds like there's already been like a handful of PRs for this merged. How, like, if the exception isn't granted, like how difficult is it for the team to either remove those PRs, or are those PRs something that this release can go out with and they're sufficiently?
Yeah, it should be fine to go out without reverting them, because without this feature gate that Jordan was talking about, none of that code will even be activated.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing user facing has merged yet. So.
Okay.
And that's actually the reason why we typically do that bit last. Like you don't give them the flags and the config fields until there's something for it to drive. So.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, George, any other thoughts or questions from CI Signal before I move on?
I don't think I can add anything on top of what Jordan just said.
Okay.
So is the question like getting feedback on whether enough of them can be merged to be useful by Wednesday, and then we can decide. You said you would get with them tomorrow morning.
Yep, that's the plan. They had a holiday today,
okay,
which is why I decided to jump on and at least represent them. And then I know they were planning on being back online early tomorrow. So
okay,
my time. Yep.
I'm very cognizant that I'm sure there's a lot of reviewers who don't want to waste energy if we're going to ultimately defer this. Kevin, do you think the SIG would prefer if we wait to hear back from the folks in Ireland, or would you like me to just give a response now for this exception?
Well, I know the primary reviewer that has been giving all of the LGTMs was Derek Carr, and I know he's the one that pinged you in the channel saying, hey, ask Louise or myself if we're able to join this call, because I know that he's said that he's dedicated to helping shepherd these things through. So whatever value that adds.
Okay.
To the question. Yeah.
I right now, given the amount of open PRs and the fact that they can't be merged simultaneously, I'm kind of leaning towards a no, just because it seems that Wednesday might be a best case scenario, and that doesn't give us a lot of time ahead of code thaw, which is supposed to be the following week. It just seems that it's a little bit high risk to merge that many things this late.
Okay.
So I can respond.
Yeah, if you could respond, just say that we got on the call, and then respond to the email or wherever you need to. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for joining though and providing additional context with this.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Okay. I think the other one we hopefully have folks on for is volume scheduling limits exception request.
Yep, we have a few folks to talk to it.
Cool. Yeah, so this one came in, sorry for not responding until early this morning to the email. It came in after I'd already left for the weekend. Is it only the single open PR that y'all have? PR number 77595?
I believe there's two. There's a scheduler PR and then the one that's the actual change on the signature.
No, they're all combined into one.
Okay. So yeah, sorry.
Okay, so it's a single PR. Looking at the PR, it looks like there's only end-to-end test jobs failing.
I think the end-to-end test, Fabio, is the end-to-end test failure related to this PR right now?
I still have to look into that, but no, I don't think it's related. I think it's just a flake.
Okay. And y'all are requesting an additional time needed 4 days. Was that 4 days, including the weekend from Friday? Or when you say 4 days, is that starting now and you anticipate work being done on Thursday?
Thursday.
Okay. So you won't have the work finished until then. So that's less than a week before code thaw.
The problem that we're having is some of the SIG scheduler people are out sick, and that's part and parcel of getting the changes approved. We've done a pretty good amount of testing, so we have a fairly high confidence rating in the code, and that this particular code path won't affect other components. And it's also a pretty important feature for CSI migration, and we don't want that to get pushed out another quarter.
Okay. Is there already work that's been merged into 115 for this?
So the CSI migration is in progress, so there are already work merged for it, but that's behind the alpha feature gate, the CSI migration, and we want to move if we don't merge this, then that means that we will not be able to get the CSI migration to beta by 1 quarter, basically, because this gives us time to start deprecating features and stuff like that. So like, for example, we want to deprecate the volumes. If CSI driver is not installed on a node, then we don't want to schedule parts on the node. I mean, it's for non-migrated volume. So this gives us a one deprecation cycle to deprecate that behavior. Similarly for the other bits that depend on CSI migration. So, but if we cannot get this in, then we'll have to push everything out by 1 quarter.
Okay. Do y'all have other indicators in terms of risk level of merging this feature late, or merging this one PR late?
I think the risk is pretty self-contained.
Yeah, we have end-to-end tests for. We have some end-to-end tests. We don't have, I think, end-to-end tests that test the alpha feature integration, but David from Google is working on getting that test suite up. So we'll keep checking on that, and then we have lots of unit tests. We have performance tests that measure the impact of this change. So we have done. Jan has done a lot of performance numbers on how it will affect the pod scheduling with volumes with this change. So those are the tests we have.
Is the code that's being added in this PR isolated if the feature is disabled? It's a little hard to tell the way it threads through the scheduler. If it's like if they don't opt into this alpha field and alpha feature, is this PR going to affect existing behavior at all?
The feature itself that it's changing behavior of a beta feature. So the feature is not beta, alpha, it's beta, but it's affecting an alpha feature. Beta feature is changing to affect a feature that is behind alpha. So yeah, so this change is beta actually. It's not alpha. So
is it moving a feature from alpha to beta, or is
no,
it?
It was before beta, and now it's still beta.
Okay, so it's just adding more capabilities to an existing beta enhancement.
That's right.
Okay.
if user were to disable that beta feature, then we can take a look. It should disable all the behavior that it adds actually.
Okay. Okay. And so Thursday for the work being done, is that worst case scenario or is that best case scenario?
I think it's highly dependent on SIG scheduler and their review times. SIG storage has been active. We have like 4 or 5 people actively working on this, and addressing comments. I think it's this, the SIG scheduler stuff that's going to hold us up.
Okay.
So review and sign off from them. But we have been getting some comments from them, and we have been addressing them quickly. I guess it's just a matter of if they keep being responsive.
Yeah, and then the input that y'all need from SIG scheduling, is it just getting their LGTM and approve on what's already done, or do they need to actually add more work to this?
Or they just need to LGTM it or review it. Yeah, they don't need to do anything else on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Their main concern was when we discussed the cap with Bobby and Ravi, the main concern was it should not affect the performance of the bot scheduling, and we have done the performance measurement. It's approximately 8% slower than what was before, and so those are the numbers. We need Bobby is on PTO, Ravi is sick today, so we need them to review this stuff, and that's where we are. We have some open comments from SIG Stories members itself, and those will be addressed today, tomorrow. But yeah, the Thursday is the worst case for that, and we need just reviews from scheduling.
Right. So they asked for changes. We've made changes. Now we're just waiting for them to say that those changes are okay.
Okay. Okay. If we can get a response from SIG scheduling relatively quickly, giving an idea of how long it'll take them to review this, that would be helpful for me in making a determination. I guess from my perspective, Thursday feels risky since that's less than a week from code thaw, and we'll have already also cut our second beta, and it doesn't give CI signal a lot of time to stabilize. If we can possibly get it earlier than Thursday, I'm a little bit more open to allowing that.
It's hard for us to commit for another SIG, given that they're on PTO and they're one SIG, but it seems like we're getting some response.
If we can, maybe I'll try to see if we can ping someone from SIG scheduling who's a reviewer who can look at it, but yes, it is unfortunate they're vacationing right now.
Yeah, and SIG scheduler is pretty small, so yeah, we can ping some scheduling folks and see. I think Thursday is the worst case again, because we should be able to get the changes done sooner. It's just that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll follow up with SIG scheduling, and I'll try to give y'all a response by end of day today if we can get a response back from SIG scheduling onto their time frame. Sound okay to you both?
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you.
And I think that's all I had in terms of exception requests. Any questions from folks? All right, if not, anything else anyone wants to discuss today?
Check out my sweet shirt.
Nice.
My first time getting to wear it.
If anyone on the call doesn't know, join a release team and you will get cool swag at the end of it. All right, cool. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your Monday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.